Welcome to Spark Stories, a monthly program where we find out about the spark that inspired area leaders to step up and enact change to make the Des Moines area a better place to live. Akil Clark is the founder and president of the Spark Foundation, which is working to reduce summer reading loss and the reading achievement gap between high and low income students by ensuring that every student has an opportunity to build their very own personal library. Clark has also works as an instructional design associate consultant with Wells Fargo and has a degree in human resource management and sociology from Upper Iowa University. Uh, Welcome, Akil. Thank you so much for being here today. I have to say that the first thing I noticed about your organization is that you're named the Spark Foundation, which is wonderful and amazing since that's also the name of this program. So it's a great coincidence, and so we're excited to have you here today.
Thanks. I'm very excited to be here. Yeah, I was really excited to see that our names matched. I thought it'd be a great fit. So thanks for inviting me.
So, can you tell us more about the Spark Foundation and what you do with that organization?
Yeah, so the Spark Foundation really grew out of an idea that every kid should have the opportunity to receive not only books, but books that reflected the community in which they live. So, what we do and what we try to do initially is set up the opportunity for us to have volunteers go into grade level classes, provide a book to every student within that class, and read it out loud. And we wanted to see people from different backgrounds within the community come into the school and ensure that those students of so many different backgrounds got to see themselves reflected in leaders in the classroom. Because right now we understand that in Iowa, the majority of the teachers are white females, and the majority of the students are of many different backgrounds. But I think it's a majority minority school system right now. And so we really wanted to not only put cool books in front of students, but we wanted to put cool people into the classrooms as well. And that really grew into the idea of, okay, how many books should a student have? And how do we get these books? And then how do they get the opportunity to self select? So not only do we give students the opportunity to receive a book that we found to be really cool, we also give them the opportunity to have a book fair in which they get to go through and pick out the books that they want. Started by us giving them like a $50 stipend and saying, hey, just, have fun, go shop for books. And the cool thing about that was, is we were trying to show students that spending money on books is not odd. Like this should be a fun experience, and do that. We also thought would give them a little bit more ownership. They'd say, I really like this because I bought this or I picked this out. And as we've grown, we've kind of moved away from that model a little bit, but we've still given them the opportunity to go through an experience where they get to pick the books that they like as well. And our goal is to follow a grade level from first to fifth grade. And hopefully by the end of that period, they would have gotten at least 50 books in their home library.
That's incredible. How long have you been doing this?
This is actually our third full school year. We started in 2018.
And so you've been following kids. Did you start with every grade level? So all elementary age groups or?
So we did start with elementary age students, and we actually started with a second grade class that was at Moulton Elementary. So we had second, third, and now they are in fourth grade. And that is the one class that we've been able to follow through the longest. And it's been so much fun seeing them remember us and when we come back in, or having emails and seeing pictures from the students. They've really gotten to see that um, there's a lot of follow through. And that was another key thing that we wanted to ensure that we provided as part of this program. There's so many opportunities for students to engage with people, but do they really stick around? And we promised the teachers that not only were we going to try to do this, but that we were going to try to be consistent with it, so that they saw positive, consistent Black role models within the community that they knew were going to be there.
So it's such an incredible project, especially given, that I'm a librarian and we love getting these books into the hands of kids as well. Has anything surprised you about what books they choose for themselves?
Hmm. I don't think anything's surprised me in regards to the books that they choose for themselves. We initially, when we started out, we had such a wide range of books that it was very hard for them to not pick the books that were the Pokemon book, right? It was like, I know Pokemon, I'm going for that specifically. But as we started to grow and we started to zoom in on our focus, it was a little easier to start to see them picking books that they felt were interesting or books that they might not actually have in the classroom. So we were able to get a lot of books with kids of color or books that have different stories from different cultures and Spanish language books. And when we would see them pick them out, they would come to us and say, hey, like this kid looks like me, or, this is something I'm interested in and I haven't seen it. And so it really wasn't that surprising. There's a lot of statistics that show that kids are going to be attracted to what they know or what they recognize. And so if you put books in front of them with kids that look like them, and those are things that they haven't seen, they're going to gravitate towards those books.
So I know that the publishing industry has been making an effort to make more of these books available, make sure that the books that are out there are representative of our actual community. Have you had any trouble finding enough books to match, the people in Des Moines in the school that you're working with?
It's a really good question, Elizabeth. I don't think that we've had trouble finding enough books, but there are certain segments that are still missing representation. And whether or not that is in like history, for example, we wanted to try to provide books that not only are fun books and have characters and have stories, but when we give them an opportunity to pick out books, some kids like history. And there's not a lot of children's history books for different backgrounds that are published here in America. So those have been really hard to find.
Great. Well, that's good to know. I mean, it sets sets us up for something that we need to look for, and hopefully we can, help each other and keep finding more books that match what you're looking for. So, can you tell me, thinking back to 3 years ago when you started this, is there any specific experience that happened that inspired you to do this project? Like, what was the trigger for you that made you decide, I got to do something, I got to start something?
Yeah, so thanks for asking that question because starting a nonprofit is something that I've wanted to do my whole life. As a student, I was introduced to Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale as a high school student, and I started to read about the programs that they made in their community for children to learn, after school programs, homework programs, breakfast programs. I was like, I want to do something cool for my community. And when my students, when my kids became school aged, I started engaging with the local elementary, and they went to Riverwoods. And one incident that occurred, um, they were having a school dance, and a student bumped into me, and the principal uh, grabbed him, pulled him aside, and said, "Hey, say excuse me." And he was like, "Okay," right? Like he didn't really think much about it. But he said, "I'm sorry." And I said, "No problem." And I shook his hand. And then when he walked away, the teacher said, "I know for a fact that this kid has never seen a black man in a suit before." And that was eye opening to me. It was very, I don't want to say alarming because it's something that I would understand. It's just that had never been a situation that I thought that I would be put in where I was that individual, because I was very much that kid when I was that age. I didn't grow up around a bunch of professional Black men. And then as I started engaging with the school more, I became the PTA president and I did a fundraiser. And I went to the school and I hosted the assembly. And one girl said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to host the assembly." And she said, "But why? Why are you trying to help us?" And that told me that this wasn't just a isolated incident. This is a scenario where students don't get adequate access to professional Black men in the school. And I knew right then that this was something that I had to take on.
So, can you talk a little bit more too about getting it started? Was it um, easy to get people to support you, to donate for this? How has it been to raise the money to be able to continue this?
It's a grind every day. But starting off, it was, I don't want to say it was easy, but it wasn't the most difficult thing in the world. And I say that reluctantly because it is a grind to try to write grants and to try to speak to the right people and open doors to individuals who would see the project and say, this is something we want to support. Luckily, I have a fantastic connections with different employers around Wells Fargo, or in Wells Fargo specifically, have been so awesome about supporting my program. And then on top of that, just friends who I've grown up in Des Moines my whole life. So we were able to do some of that. And then a vast network of people on Facebook and just individual contributors have made this something that we've been able to continue doing. But saying all that, we still operate on a shoestring budget. We have a board of 5 individuals. We all do this as volunteer work. And every month it's like, all right, we're going to do this until we are no longer able to based off the funds that we have. And so it's not necessarily easy, but it's always super rewarding when we see that people do donate their hard-earned money and say, we want to help you get books to the hands of students.
So you grew up in Des Moines. You graduated from Hoover High School, I understand. So, and then you had your own children here in the school system. What is the vision that you're working towards with everything you're doing? What is that goal that you see at the end of what you want to accomplish? I understand, you said you want to make sure to get as many kids to have their personal library, but like, do you have a different vision for how that maybe affects them in their lives, or just kind of a broader vision?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really a starting point of saying, this is how we want to introduce ourselves to the students within our community. As saying, we're a consistent program and we want to provide books. Ultimately, what we want to see is no cost book fairs in each public elementary school in DMPS. Because we understand that books are such a huge part of not only their success in school. By third grade, we need them to be proficient readers, but also after school and post secondary education, we need them to not only read because they enjoy it, but we need them to read to learn, and for this not to be such an odd thing. And I think the one way that we can do that is we can work by removing the barrier to entry and saying we are going to be able to set up a way to where not only kids get to pick books, but we give them a way to be excited about it. And if their attitude changes towards books, because when they go to a book event, they don't get told no, or they don't have to walk away because they don't have the money. They go into it having a positive experience. And we believe as long as they have a positive experience, that they're going to be more inclined to not only look after that book, but to read that book. And as they grow, we're going to see that they carry that throughout middle school and high school.
Can you also talk a little bit about kind of your connection with libraries, and why what you are doing, creating a personal library for kids, how that is different from like what the library does for kids to provide free checkout of materials?
Yeah, so one of the things that we really wanted to do is create a sense of ownership. And the idea that, if I own this, I'm going to take more care of it potentially. This is something that I'm going to cherish. So that was key. And one of the other things that we wanted to make sure that we didn't impose on students was the idea that um, there is an economic penalty if something does happen to that book. And when I was young, and if I lost a book from the Des Moines Library, I knew that I had to pay a fee. And unfortunately, that would stop me from being able to engage with the books that were at the library. And so while when we were trying to come up with the concept for this, it was, you know what, this would be really awesome if we were able to do this with the library, but we didn't want them to then have a negative relationship with the library if that's what occurred. So it became a scenario where they had to own the book so that they continue having a positive experience with book and book ownership.
And I'm so glad you brought that up because it is a huge barrier for so many families, the fine structure. And I wanted to make sure to mention that the Des Moines Public Library in the last year has canceled fines for youth materials. So that's a huge step forward for our community. We've cleared fines for families that had previous lost children's items. So it cleared the slate for people so that if they had had that problem or were afraid to come back to the library because of old fines, we kind of cleared the slate. We wanted to say, come back to the library and start fresh, and you will not get fines on children's books for late materials. So we hope that helps kids in the community to feel comfortable coming in and checking out books once they develop this really wonderful relationship with them that you're working to do. What books for you have been particularly influential along the way? Is there any one that you want to talk about?
Um, so a lot of the books that I read as a kid, none of them were very influential. Unfortunately, when I read books as a kid, they were kind of just like Goosebumps and all those different things. I really got into reading pretty heavy books in about eighth grade, and I think the key book that changed my mind and made me look at society in a whole different way is Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? It was probably quite a bit above my reading like an understanding level, but I read that book multiple times to try to understand why our schools are the way they are and how different people interact with each other. That book plus Seize the Time by Bobby Seale made me the person I am today. It made me decide that, you know what, there's work that can be done. And kind of here's how to do it. Like these are the problems. And one book said, this is how you make it happen. So those were the ones that really shaped me growing up.
Yeah, I know I saw that title sitting probably in high school, the Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? And it caught my eye because that was the reality. I went to Valley, and that seemed to be sort of like what I saw every day. I don't think I ever opened the book, but I definitely it piqued my interest. So I'm so
Mhm.
excited to hear you say that was an influential book for you. And I still haven't read it, but now I think I'll have to go back and check it out and get into it. So thank you so much for sharing your story today and this amazing inspirational organization that you've put together. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
This was something that really started as a passion project, and I am just extremely thankful for everyone who donates and who supports us. I said that we operate on a shoestring budget, and I wasn't lying, but every single dollar that someone provides us allows us to buy books for students that they would not otherwise have. And I am just always thankful that someone is willing to help us forward our mission by supporting us.
Thank you again, Akil, for being with us today. I hope everybody in the audience enjoyed hearing your Spark story. I know I did. And if you'd like to learn more about Spark Stories, please check us out on our website, dmpl.org, and be sure to tune in again next month for another episode. Thank you.